The remedies of the heart, the diseases of the heart, you can categorize them into two types. One is going to be natural remedies, and one is going to be spiritual remedies. نوع مرض القلب نوعان. The diseases of the heart are of two types. نوع لا يتألم به صاحبه في الحال وهو النوع المتقدم كمرض الجهل ومرض الشبهات والشكوك. Look, the first type is that لا يتألم به صاحبه في الحال. In the immediate current moment, the person who has this illness, they might not even find any pain, they might not even find any hardship, they might not even notice they have this illness. And this is the type of illness that we've already mentioned, كمرض الجهل, like the illness of ignorance. A person who doesn't know that they don't feel that illness, they don't feel that the harms of that illness. ومرض الشبهات والشكوك, doubts, desires. In the short term, a person feels like, I've got desires, I've got doubts, no big deal. Everybody has doubts, everybody has desires, and a person acts on them and acts on them and acts on them, and they have this illness. They don't realize the harm it's doing to them in the short term. ومرض الشهوات وهذا النوع هو أعظم النوعين ألما. But this type of illness that we're looking at, there's two types we're going to look at. This is the first type. This is the one that is the most severe in terms of pain. ولكن لفساد القلب لا يحس بالألم. However, لفساد القلب, because the heart has been corrupted, this person doesn't even sense the harms of this, the illness. They don't even sense the harms of this. ولأن سكرة الجهل والهوى, because the intoxication of ignorance and the intoxication of the desires, تحول بينه وبين إدراك الألم, they come in between this person and their feeling of the pain. Okay. وإلا فألمه حاضر فيه. Otherwise, if it wasn't for this intoxication, if it wasn't for this damaged heart, this illness would be felt. It's something that a person would perceive. حاصل له, it's something that can be experienced. وهو متوار عنه باشتغاله بضده, but it's hidden from him because he's focused on the opposite. وهذا أخطر المرضين وأصعبهما. This is the most dangerous of the two illnesses. وعلاجه إلى الرسل وأتباعهم, and the cure is found from the messengers and the followers of the messengers. فهم أطباء هذا المرض, and they are the doctors of this illness. So pay attention. What's he saying? There is a spiritual illness that if a person has, in the short term, they might not even realize they have this illness. They might not even feel it. They might not even acknowledge it. And that's because of the intoxication of ignorance, or that's because of the senses, you can't sense it, etc., etc., because the heart is damaged, because the heart is corrupt. And so this is an extremely dangerous illness. That is the illness that can only be cured through the prophets and the followers of the prophets. والنوع الثاني, the second type of illness of the heart, مرض مؤلم له في الحال, it's something that you'll feel the pain of which in the present. كالهم والغم والحزن والغيظ. Examples of which are like hum, gham, hazan, sadness, grief, anger. Right? Now these are not spiritual illnesses. To feel depressed, to feel sad, to feel grieved, these are illnesses of the heart. وهذا المرض قد يزول بأدوية طبيعية. And the cure for these, it might even be natural remedies. Natural remedies meaning remedies in the real world. An example, he says, كإزالة أسبابه, removing the means of that pain. For example, sometimes you have a relationship or a friendship with somebody that causes you a lot of pain. And so كإزالة أسبابه, sometimes cutting off that friendship and kind of giving yourself that peace, that is the best thing for you to do. That is a natural remedy in this real world for you to push away that harm of sadness and grief. And this is something that a person has to consider. أو بالمداواة بما يضاد تلك الأسباب. Or you have to take a cure by finding the opposite of that harm. So for example, you are spending time in the company of people who do not have your best interests at heart. Let's say you're going to work, and constantly at work, there's this pressure, there's this, there's that, you're expected to do this, you're expected to do that, but it doesn't feel good. It's not the right company, it's not the right people you're surrounding yourself with. Sometimes they're putting things into your ear and they're putting things into your mind that aren't going to make you come home and be content with what's going on in your home. And they're going to put expectations on you, and they're going to expect you, you should be living like this, or you should be doing this. And the more you spend time with them, the less happy you feel and the less grateful you are. And then when you come into your home, when you come to your family, you feel like, this isn't the life that I want. And so a person has to tackle that. وهذا كما أن القلب قد يتألم بما يتألم به البدن ويشقى بما يشقى به البدن. And this is the same where the heart, the heart finds pain where the body finds pain. And the heart finds struggle where the body finds struggle. You see, there's certain things that happen in your life where somebody passes away, or this happens, or that happens, or something of this nature, or you feel that pain. فكذلك البدن يتألم كثيرا بما يتألم به القلب ويشقيه بما يشقيه. Just as the heart finds pain from the body can also find pain from the heart. Right? Think about this. What he's saying is quite deep. He's saying that, look, we know that your heart, if it's struggling, your body will struggle. Right? But he's also saying if your body is struggling, your heart will struggle as well. And the point here is, sometimes if a person is heartbroken, somebody is hurt, somebody is upset, that will affect their physical body as well. That will have an effect on this person, the way they carry themselves in everything. So Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah is pointing it out. He's saying there's two types of illnesses when you're looking at the heart. There is the spiritual illness, the cure of which is going to come from the Quran and the Hadith, from the prophets. The spiritual illnesses of the heart cannot come from anything else. You cannot take paracetamol to fix the illnesses of the heart. But there are the non-spiritual illnesses, the natural illnesses, the kind of depression and sadness and grief and anger and these types of things, which don't have a spiritual cure necessarily. These are natural cures that you have for these. And this is important because a lot of the time, somebody will come to me and say to me, I know this person who's going through this. Can you give me some dua? Can you give me some dhikr? Can you give me some wadifa? Can you give me this or can you give me that? And there isn't anything per se specific to this incident. There isn't something specific that I will say that read this many times or do this many times. And often that's how our mind is wired. Let me find a quick solution where I just pray something and blow on this person and the problem is solved. It doesn't work like that. It really doesn't work like that. Often it requires natural remedies. It requires us to do something. It requires us to be involved, right? And this is, by the way, this is something that we're going to see more and more, and we are seeing more and more. There's a lot of challenges that we face as a community, and this is only going to, get worse, where we are going to have to start thinking about these natural illnesses, sadness, grief, depression, all of these things. I believe in Balam or Tooting, there was recently a suicide. Was it a sister or a brother? Like literally two weeks ago or something like this. It was a quiet janaza. I was asked about it, the ruling of it, and I gave the ruling at the time. But it's something which is becoming more and more common. And this is going to be the case, especially with certain factors that we have. One of the factors of that, as much as we don't want to hear it, but we all know it, it's social media. Social media has a big impact on this. Now, I'm not saying get off social media. You guys know my position on social media. It has huge benefits, massive benefits. But I think there's a consideration that we need to have where we're understanding there's a lot of harm that comes from it unrestricted, especially at a young age, where for women, there are standards that they have to hold and they have to reach of beauty standards and this standard and that standard. For men, they have to reach a certain standard of wealth, of money, of affluence, living a certain lifestyle, etc. And there's both of these these challenges that a person is facing. It doesn't make things easier. And we touched slightly on this last week where I talked about the idea of looking at those who are less fortunate than you. Otherwise, you end up being ungrateful for the blessings that you do have. And so that's Ibn al-Qayyim pointing that idea out. فَأَمْرَاضُ الْقَلْبِ الَّتِي تَزُولُ بِالْأَدْوِيَةِ الطَّبِعِيَّةِ مِنْ جِنْسِ أَبْرَاضِ الْبَدَنِ. He says, I'm not underestimating the illness that comes from the natural world. The idea that a person can become depressed, the idea that somebody can become angry, the idea that there are solutions that are needed in the real world. I'm not underestimating those. وَهَذِهِ لَا تُوجَبُ وَحْدَهَا شِقَاؤُهُ وَعَذَابُهُ بَعْدَ الْمَوْتِ. But he says that one thing I will say is, if a person has grief or depression or sadness and they die with that illness, with that sadness, with that grief, that will not land them into the fire of hell. And that will not give them any punishment after death. وَأَمَّا أَمْرَاضُهُ الَّتِي لَا تَزُولُ إِلَّا بِالْأَدْوِيَةِ الْإِيمَانِيَّةِ النَّبَوِيَّةِ. As for those illnesses that can only be reconciled and cured and fixed with iman and faith and prophetic prescriptions, فهي التي توجب له الشقاء والعذاب الدائم إن لم يتداركها بأدويتها المضادة لها. These are the illnesses that if a person was to die with, then this person would have al-adhab al-da'im. This person would have a long-lasting punishment, and this person would have a shiqa. This person would have, he'd be unfortunate if he was not able to find the cure for it. فإذا استعمل تلك الأدوية حصل له الشفاء. And if they use this, the cure, then they will acquire the cure for it. If they use the cure, the remedy, they will be cured. ولهذا يقال شفى غيظه. And that is why the Arabs, they have a saying, شفى غيظه, he found healing for his rage. When somebody's angry, فإذا استولى عليه عدوه آلمه ذلك. When your enemy overcomes you, that causes you pain. Let's say somebody who you're competing with, somebody who doesn't like you, who's jealous of you, they get one over you. It annoys you, frustrates you, pains you. The satisfaction of them saying something and you kicking back, and they got the satisfaction of your reaction, that frustrates you. فإذا انتصف منه اشتفى قلبه. But when you get revenge, or intasafa is when you get your justice, your heart feels solace. Ibn al-Qayyim is pointing to real scenarios here. That sometimes you kind of want somebody to get that karma, as we put it. You want them to get that kind of, that comeuppance. And when that happens, shafa ghaydo. Your anger is cured, your anger is healed. قال تعالى, Allah refers to this idea, قاتلوهم يعذبهم الله. Or يعذبهم الله. قاتلوهم. Allah is specifically talking about a specific set of circumstances here. This is in the kind of Treaty of Hudaybiyah. There were a group of Jews from the kind of community of the Jews that were living in Medina who deceived the Prophet ﷺ. They had a treaty, they had an agreement. You can live amongst us, we live in peace. You mind your business, we'll mind our business. But those specific Jews, they went against that treaty and they sided with another side. And they plotted against the believers. And so Allah gave the instruction, قاتلوهم. You can now go to war with them. They've broken the treaty. They've renegaded on their treaty. You can do the same. يعذبهم الله بأيديكم. And their breaking the treaty has to be punished by Allah. Allah will punish them with your hands. Meaning you getting your revenge, Allah will punish them for what they have done at your hands. ويخزهم, and Allah will humiliate them. وينصركم عليهم, and Allah will assist you against them. ويشفي صدور قوم مؤمنين, and Allah will cure the hearts of the believers. This is really interesting because all of us will be able to connect to this verse. You see, this is the thing. Sometimes we look at verses and we think it's a bit of an extreme verse. It's a bit of a jihadi type of verse. I'm not really comfortable with it. But the depth within these verses, these are the verses of emotion. These are the verses where Allah is connecting directly with us. When somebody does you over, when you've done favors for somebody, and somebody turns around and doesn't appreciate that, that's probably one of the things that hurts the most. When you've done favor upon favor upon favor upon favor, and you've looked out for somebody, but they just do not appreciate what you're doing for them, and they turn the blind eye to it, or they appreciate somebody else or something else, that burns the heart more than anything else. It's that lack of loyalty, it's that lack of appreciation, it's all of these things. Allah says to them, that's how you felt, O believers, in the time that you needed this person the most, these people the most. You had allies with them, you had treaties with them, and they turned against you. And you felt that wrath, and you felt that anger, and you felt that rage. Then you have the permission to do this, and Allah, by means of this, yashfi sudura qawmin mu'mineen, Allah will give the cure to the hearts of the believing people. And it's interesting because He doesn't say yashfi qalb or qulub. He doesn't say I will give the cure to the hearts of the believing people. He says the sudur. Sudur is not just the heart; it's the chest. Meaning the amount of rage and the amount of anger and the amount of disappointment that the person feels, it extends beyond the heart. Right? Your whole chest hurts, your whole body hurts. You feel that. It's a personal thing. And this is the thing about these verses. A lot of the time when we think about these verses of jihad, we're thinking they're going to be very kind of brutal, or they're going to be very this. Allah's actually tapping into usually these very strong emotions that we have on a day-to-day basis, and we see them in these verses. وَيُذْهِبْ غَيْضَ قُلُوبِهِمْ. And Allah will remove the ghayb, the anger within their hearts. It's interesting because there is an anger that builds up in your heart, and the problem with that anger is if you do not find an outlet for it, you will release that anger into the wrong people, or onto the wrong people, or into the wrong circumstances. Allah is saying that that anger that builds up, you don't take it out on yourselves or your family members or this or that. You've got to outlet that in the right sources or the right places. وَيَتُوبُ اللَّهُ عَلَى مَن يَشَاءُ, and Allah will forgive whoever He wants. And so وَأَعْلَمَهُمْ أَنَّ فِيهِ ستة فوائد. Ibn al-Qayyim says, look, I love a bit of tafsir. I'm impartial to a bit of tafsir. Let me mention 6 points here in this specific verse that might be worth us considering and thinking about. He says, فَالْغَيْضُ يُؤْلِمُ الْقَلْبِ. First thing that you should consider. فَالْغَيْضُ, anger, يُؤْلِمُ الْقَلْبِ. It causes pain to the heart. Resentment causes pain to the heart. That's what Allah says, right? وَيُذْهِبُ غَيْضَ قُلُوبِهِمْ. Allah wants to remove the ghayz, the anger, the resentment in your hearts. Having resentment in your heart will do more harm to you than to somebody else. We live in a time where it's very difficult to not see the blessings that other people have. We live in a time where you're always competing with other people. That competition is always there. And as much as you give smiles to people, and as much as people give smiles to you, deep down there's a resentment. But that resentment only burns away at you. And so, وَدَوَاؤُهُ فِي شِفَاءِ غَيْظِهِ. The cure for that resentment is found in removing that resentment. فَإِن شَفَاهُ بِحَقٍ اشْتَفَى. This is such an important principle. Pay attention. فَإِن شَفَاهُ بِحَقٍ اشْتَفَى. If the person cures this, if the cure is achieved fairly and justly, then that heart is cured. وَإِن شَفَاهُ بِظُلْمٍ وَبَاطِلٍ. But if you cure that anger and that resentment through injustice, through falsehood, زَادَهُ مَرَضًا. That illness will increase مِنْ حَيْثُ ظَنَّ أَنَّهُ يُشْفِيهِ, despite this person imagining that it's going to cure them. Listen to this carefully. There are people, I briefly kind of touched on this last week as a passing comment, but there are people who they have resentment, and when they have resentment, they will turn to impermissible ways of getting back at somebody. That impermissible thing that you do might give you a very short-term satisfaction. But what that actually does, it will only increase your illness. It will only increase that resentment within you. You think it's cured, but it's going to come back even worse, and it's going to be resentment at places where it shouldn't be. This is a very important principle. If you cure that resentment in a proper halal way, you find a proper solution for it, a solution that pleases Allah, that will cure your heart. Sometimes you see somebody, a family member or this or that, etc., and you don't like them. In certain cultures, this is common, where a person will go and now they'll try and do some black magic, or they'll try and do this, or they'll try and do that, whatever. Different things. It might just be not even something as sinister. It might be that a person will go out of their way to try and cause some damage to their business, to their family, to this, to that. That might make you feel good when you watch this person struggling in the short term, but that will only fuel that resentment even more. And that will only make you more of a bitter person, and that will only ruin you. If you do not acquire that cure in a fair, in a just way, in a way that is pleasing to Allah, it will only increase the burning in your heart. It will only increase that kind of heartburn. And if you do it in a proper, if you do it in the proper way, that will cure this individual from that. وهو كمن شفى مرض العشق بالفجور بالمعشوق. It's like the example of the one who has the illness of immense strong desires. And they think to themselves, let me solve these desires by involving myself in disobedience of Allah and sins. The more you engage in sins, that will be a short-term solution. And now the next time that desire comes, you have opened a door that you would never have considered opening, and now you will much quicker fall to prey to that sin. And now you've opened a door that you will easily access until you will continue that sin, continue that sin, continue that sin, and then you will open another door, and you'll open another door, and you'll open another door. And I gave the example previously, and the scholars have given this example as well. When you throw a log into the fire, it does not remove the fire, it just increases that fire. Every time you throw a sin at this flame that's within you, these desires that are within you, you don't extinguish that flame, you actually encourage that flame, and you bring that flame to life even more. فإن ذلك يزيد مرضه. This will only increase the illness. ويوجب له أمراضا أخر. And this will actually cause way and give birth to other illnesses أصعب من مرض العشق, worse than the previous illness. Now it's going to push you and push you. You've opened a door that you never had opened before. You've crossed a boundary that you'd never crossed before. And now it's going to push you into another area. It's going to push you into another boundary. كما سيأتي إن شاء الله تعالى. And he says, I'm not planning on discussing this right now. These discussions are going to come. كما سيأتي إن شاء الله تعالى. Inshallah, these discussions are going to come in detail. But he's pointing out that this ghayr of the heart, this anger that's within the heart, there is a cure for that, and a person has to find the cure for that, for the sadness, for this, for that, all of these things. وكذلك الغم والهم والحزن. Similarly with the sorrow and anxiety and grief, أمراض للقلب. These are all illnesses of the heart. وشفاؤها بأضدادها من الفرح والسرور. The cure for them is to find the opposites. It might be happiness, it might be joy. فإن كان ذلك بحق اشتفى القلب وصح وبرئ من مرضه. فإن كان ذلك بحق. If a person acquires these in the proper way, and you find the remedy for your heart. Think about this. A person is looking for happiness. A person is getting married, for example. And the marriage is supposed to be the best day of people's life. As people often phrase it, it's supposed to be the best day of your life. Allah make the best day of our life the last day of our existence, and the best day of our next life, meeting with Allah. But if a person is about to embark on this journey of marriage, for example, and this person wants to fill it with happiness and joy, you have options in what happiness and joy you incorporate into your marriage, into your wedding. Is it that which is pleasing to Allah, or is it that which is displeasing to Allah? Because all of these are going to become a means of either spiritual blessings or spiritual illnesses. And this is one thing I'll keep pointing out to you. Everything you do, consider the physical ramifications, as he mentions, the tab'i ramifications and the shari'i ramifications. An example, interest. Taking interest payments, taking that which is not permissible, usurious payments, that type of thing. That will have physical harms, but it will absolutely have spiritual harms as well. And spiritual harms will be much worse than the physical harms often. The way you treat your parents will have spiritual harms, will have physical harms. Same over here, what he's pointing out, he says that these things like sorrow, anxiety, and grief, if you try to push them away with impermissible things, you try to bring joy into your life through impermissible means, it will not solve your problem. It will only make your problem worse. You might feel like you're getting better. The example I gave you last week, you have eczema and you're itching that eczema and you're scratching it. It feels really good. You're solving a problem. When you finish the itching, you realize that you're bleeding, your skin is worse, you've damaged your skin, all of these things. Now this healing will take much longer. It's going to leave marks behind, all of these different things. Spiritually, the heart is exactly the same. وَكَذَلِكَ الْغَمُّ وَالْهَمُّ وَالْحُزْنُ. You are making a decision every single time you consider, how do I bring joy and happiness to myself? Am I doing it in a way that's pleasing to Allah, or am I doing it in a way that's displeasing to Allah? That's the consideration Ibn al-Qayyim is getting us to think about. When we're going out and about in our lives, ask yourself, physically this will make me money in the short term, but spiritually what harm is it going to do to me? Spiritually, how is this going to affect me? Physically, how is this going to affect me? Spiritually, how is this going to affect me? They go hand in hand. فَإِنْ كَانَ ذَلِكَ بِحَقٍّ اشْتَفَى الْقَلْبُ وَصَحَّ وَبَرِئَ مِنْ مَرَضِهِ. If a person does this in the proper way, in a halal way, in a permissible way, then the person will be cured from that illness of sadness. وَإِنْ كَانَ بِبَاطِلٍ. If a person uses some batil, some false, some haram, some impermissible means to cure their sadness. Tawara dhalika. It will only conceal the sadness. Wastatara. And it will only bury it. It will remain dormant. It will remain present. It's just been kind of put under the carpet. And then when you kind of festers and festers, then it'll come out from the carpet. وَلَمْ يَزُلْ, it won't disappear. وَأَعْقَبَهُ أَمْرَاضًا هِيَ أَصْعَبُ وَأَخْطَرُ. And this person will then become privy to illnesses that were more dangerous and even worse. If you have a physical health condition and you leave it unattended and you leave it, kind of unaccounted for, it will only get worse. And it will only end up, and the doctors will say, had you come a week ago, you would have, but now you have to do this. And they say, had you come a week ago, we could have given you antibiotics. Now we have to amputate. Now we have to remove a finger. Now we have to remove a hand. And so the delay in curing the illness and the delay in finding the cure, that will cause even more problems. So we're not at the stage of, the author is not talking about what's the cure, find the cure. He's saying we are at this stage of identifying the illnesses. What type of illnesses are we looking for? And what are the types of cures that we are going to eventually look for? وَكَذَلِكَ الْجَهْلِ مَرَضٌ يُؤْلَمُ الْقَلْبِ. Ignorance is the same. Not knowing what Allah wants from you is the same. It's an illness that will hurt the heart. فَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يُدَاوِيهِ بِعُلُومٍ لَا تَنْفَعُ. There are some people who have the illness of ignorance. So they think, let me go and study. And so they start studying those bits of sciences and those parts of the religion that don't benefit. So you go and you think to yourself, okay, look, I need to study. These people all around me are studying, I need to go and study. And so you go onto YouTube and you start looking at debates between this person and that person. You start memorizing things that are irrelevant to you and that are not relevant and this and that, and you're convinced these are the things I need to think about. When in reality, you look back, it doesn't bring you closer to Allah. If it's not bringing you closer to Allah, there's a number of factors that are probably wrong. Number one, your intention. Your intention might not be right. This thing that we keep mentioning, intention. The reason you're sat there in the presence of a teacher, or the reason you're sat in a classroom, is so that you can come closer to Allah, so that you can become more practicing, so that you can become somebody who removes disobedience from their life and brings into their life obedience, so that you can practice that which you learn. Nothing else. It's not to impress the teacher. It's not to look good in the classroom. It's not to do this. It's not to do that. It's not to show off my knowledge. None of these things. The objective of sitting in front of a teacher, if that is wrong, if the intention is wrong, you can spend years and years and years, it won't benefit. That's one of the factors that might be the thing that's wrong. So all of us sat here, we have to renew our intentions. I'm sat here, so how can I leave this 1 hour, this 45 minutes, this 1 hour, 15 minutes, whatever time, and the time it took me to get here, and the time it's going to take me to get back, this entire time that I put in, these 2 hours or so, how can I get closer to Allah, and how can I do something that's going to please Allah? How can I improve myself? How can I become a better believer? And so Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah says, the issue that many of us fall into is sometimes we think we found the cure, but that cure is not beneficial for us. It's actually compounding that illness. And so sometimes it's myself that's the problem, but sometimes it's what I'm studying that's the problem. I'm studying the wrong bits of knowledge. I'm studying to argue. I'm studying to debate. I'm not studying to find Allah. I'm not studying to learn about Allah. I'm not studying to grow in proximity to Allah. I'm studying so that if somebody asks me this question, I'll respond like this. If somebody asks me about this, I'll say this. If somebody asks me this question, I can respond like this. No. فَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يُدَاوِيهِ بِعُلُومٍ لَا تَنْفَعُ. There are people who seek knowledge, but that's علم لا ينفع. Somebody might argue, but isn't all knowledge beneficial of the religion? The Prophet ﷺ would make the dua, Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'a. Allah, I'm asking you for ilm which is nafi', which is beneficial, which the scholars in the explanations of these hadith they mentioned, that teaches you that there is also non-beneficial knowledge. And that also teaches you that all knowledge is beneficial at the right time. See, if somebody says to you, this, you go into a pharmacist and they say, all of these things that you see here are medication, and they will cure an illness. So a person says, if I take all of these medicines, I'll never get ill. If I take every single one of these medicines on a daily basis, I take one medication each, I should never get ill. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. There's a time and a place that a person studies certain things. Al-ahammu fal-aham, there's priorities for these things. You don't start with studying something complex and start saying, well, I want to study this controversial thing and this and that. Actually, I need to start somewhere more basic. I need to start here. And even that basic thing, if it takes me 3 years, for somebody else it took 2 years. For me, it might take 4 years. For me, it might take 5 years. But I don't want to just get through classes. I don't want to just make progress for the sake of it. I want to make sure I've mastered what I'm doing. I want to make sure I've covered what I'm doing properly. ويعتقد أنه قد صح من مرضه بتلك العلوم. And the person thinks that with this knowledge that they're acquiring, this non-beneficial knowledge, they start considering themselves to now be curing from this illness. Right? It's the placebo effect. You start thinking, I'm taking medicine, I'm studying, it'll get better, I'm getting better. I can feel it. It's, I'm spending time in this company, I'm memorizing this, I'm doing this, I look more knowledgeable, I look more practicing. وهي في الحقيقة إنما تزيده مرضا إلى مرضه. But the reality is, not only are you wallowing in the previous illness, you're now increasing in other illnesses. This is the nature of it. This is why he's mentioning this at the beginning, because the traps of shaitan don't even come in yet. We sometimes are tripping ourselves up at the first hurdle. Haven't made Allah the objective. We have made other things the objective. My attending here might be for somebody else. My attending here might be for something else. And so that's where it starts. لكن اشتغل القلب بها. But this person distracted his heart with these non-beneficial pieces of knowledge عن إدراك الألم الكامن فيه بسبب جهله بالعلوم النافعة التي هي شرط في صحته وبرئه. And he doesn't even feel the pain because he's distracted himself with convincing themselves that I'm studying beneficial knowledge, whereas the person has left and abandoned that which was actually going to be a cure for them. The bitter stuff, the stuff of knowledge that you don't want to hear but you need to hear, right? For the Zidna students, the kind of Zidna revival sessions we do at the start of every holidays, I always try to select something that is going to be bitter for us to take in and is going to be uncomfortable for us to listen to. Like the discussions that we had just last week on qana'a and zuhud, this idea of abstinence from this world, this idea of contentment with our share and not going wild into I need more of this and more of this, but what can I do for the religion? These ideas are things that we need to think about. When there's a whole tide, when every post on social media is saying to you, you need to focus on your dunya, you need to get your money up, you need to live this type of style, your water should be of this quality, you need to buy this brand of water, it needs to be this, your clothing needs to be this brand, this needs to be this brand, this needs to be this brand. There has to be the opposite, the kind of, we're walking in the face of that, where we're saying, I can wear clothes that don't have any branding. I can wear clothes like this. I can live a life like this. I can live like this happily and be content. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في الذين أفتوا بالجهل. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم mentions regarding those people who give fatwa with ignorance. Those people who talk about the religion whilst being ignorant. Those people who have commentary on the religion without knowing the religion. فهلك المستفتي بفتواهم. The questioner is destroyed with their question. Why? The Prophet ﷺ says, قتلوه قتلهم الله. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is a narration of Abu Dawood, Daraqutni, other narrations, the Prophet ﷺ mentions regarding the person who goes and asks somebody, or a person who goes and acquires knowledge from somebody who doesn't have the credentials to speak on behalf of the Prophet ﷺ. And the credentials to speak on behalf of the Prophet ﷺ is simple. It doesn't matter what gender you are, it doesn't matter what ethnicity you are, it doesn't matter where you come from. It's a simple thing. If you are taking it from the sources that the Prophet ﷺ passed the knowledge down to, that is, you have the right to narrate it. Whether a person is a female scholar, whether a person is a male scholar, whether a person, that is not a metric that we care about. It doesn't matter what gender, ethnicity, this, that, all of these things. It matters what's the evidence for your statement. Where is it rooted? Which companion said this? Which scholar said this? Where is it coming from? And so the Prophet ﷺ says regarding these individuals who give fatwa, who comment on the religion when they don't have a right to comment on it, قتلوه. The person who قتلوه, they have killed him. قتلهم الله, and may Allah kill them. Now again, قتلهم الله, it doesn't literally mean may Allah kill them. It's a phrase used in Arabic, yani when you say in shock, like they will be destroyed by Allah. It's more kind of, it's not a dua, it's not a statement, like it's past tense. So they were destroyed by Allah. Allah destroyed them. But it doesn't literally mean that. It means they will be destroyed by Allah. It's like a future thing, like du'as in Arabic, they do that. So qataluhu, but the people killed this person by asking them. The people killed this person by giving them a platform. By putting this person forward, you became a means of destroying that person as well. You're the one who gave oxygen to that fire. A fire burns, but you're the one who gave oxygen to it. You're the one who gave it life. If you ignored that fire, if you didn't give it views, if you didn't give it attention, it will burn out by itself. If a person doesn't look for the glitter and the glamour and says, well, I want to find somebody who I can study with, who's going to give me this and give me that, and looks like this and sounds like this and this and that, but it doesn't matter the content, it matters the aesthetic. It doesn't matter the quality, it just matters on kind of, even the quantity or what I'm getting or this and that. Qataluhu, you people were as responsible for this person as anybody else because you gave a platform. ألا سألوا إذ لم يعلموا فإنما شفاء العي السؤال. ألا سألوا إذ لم يعلموا. The Prophet ﷺ, he then continues in the hadith and he says, ألا سألوا, why did the people not ask إذ لم يعلموا, when they did not know? If you don't know, ask. If you don't know, seek. If you don't know, study. فإنما شفاء العي السؤال. The cure for ignorance is in the question. The cure for ignorance is in asking. And what does Allah say in the Quran? فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ. Ask the people of dhikr, ask the people of remembrance, ask the people of learning, ask the people who have studied. فَجَعَلَ الْجَهْلُ مَرَضًا. And so in this hadith itself, the Prophet ﷺ has made jahl, ignorance, an illness. وَشِفَاؤُهُ, and he talks about it as an illness because he says, فَإِنَّمَا شِفَاءُ الْعِيِّ. The cure for ignorance is a su'al. So it's a cure. That means it's an illness. وَشِفَاؤُهُ, or the cure for it is سُؤَالَ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ, to ask the people of knowledge. And so Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah is pointing out over here a very important idea. He's saying to us that, look, understand these illnesses and understand that often the reason you're struggling is your sources are wrong. The doubts, the desires, all of these things, it's often coming from your sources. You need to reconsider where you are acquiring your knowledge from. You need to reconsider why you are acquiring that knowledge. With what intent are you acquiring that knowledge? What are you going to acquire that knowledge for? وكذلك الشاك في الشيء المرتاب فيه. Similarly, that was ignorance, right? So somebody who doesn't know. And so again, like, it's important to appreciate this as well. Sometimes you think you're taking medicine, but you're actually making yourself worse. That's the point he's making. You thought you're taking medicine, you thought you're acquiring knowledge, but it's actually harmful for you. And this is where a person has to be in the presence of practitioners of knowledge. A person has to go and spend time in the company of those people who spend time in the company of scholars. وكذلك الشاك في الشيء المرتاب فيه. And in the similar, and by the way, I always clarify to the students as well, when I say this, go and spend time in the company of the people and the scholars and this and that, don't ever think that I'm referring to myself here. The students themselves know this well enough that I myself go and spend time in the company of scholars because I need it. I'm not at that stage, and I don't consider myself of that stage that you come and spend time in my company. We are in the company of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah. We are reading the work of Ibn al-Qayyim. We are benefiting from him. The only reason I'm sat here is because I'm able to translate it a little bit, and I'm able to present to you some ideas that I've read from other people. If somebody else was to walk in with a better ability, they'd happily sit here and they would do that. And I would happily sit and listen. But we're going through the works of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah over here. And so understand that when I say to you go and spend time in the company of scholars, I mean real scholars, genuine scholars, not students. So وَكَذَلِكَ الشَّاكُ فِي الشَّيْءِ الْمُرْتَابُ فِيهِ يَتَأَلَّمُ قَلْبُهُ حَتَّى يَحْصُلُ لَهُ الْعِلْمُ وَالْيَقِينُ. In the same way, a person who has doubts, they have doubts in regard to something, يَتَأَلَّمُ قَلْبُهُ, his heart is pained, his heart is hurt, it's damaged, until this person acquires knowledge and conviction. You are damaging your heart with those doubts until you get those doubts fixed. Right? I don't need to go into this in much detail, but I've mentioned this to you, and we've looked at this quite a few times now. The issue with shaitan. The issue with shaitan was he had a doubt in his mind regarding Adam. And he should have asked Allah about that doubt. Did he ask Allah about the doubt? Who else had this doubt in the heavens? The angels. The angels had the exact same doubt. We're not saying doubts are an issue. Ibn al-Qayyim has never said doubts are a problem. The Sharia has never said doubts are a problem. The Quran has never said doubts are a problem. Doubts are a reality that plague the mind of every single person. But the angels had the same doubt that Shaitan did. But the angels asked Allah. The angel said that, oh, you're going to create somebody who sheds blood on the earth and this and that, etc. And they asked the question. Allah satisfied their curiosity. Shaitan still had that, Iblis still had that same question. And so what happens? When the time comes for prostration, how are the angels able to prostrate and Shaitan isn't? Because he had his doubts cleared. That doubt manifested itself in practical terms eventually. If you don't clear that doubt up, eventually it will show itself in your statements and your actions. If you clear it up, it doesn't. The angels asked why, and Allah answered them, and they were satisfied with the answer, and they were content. Iblis didn't ask. Iblis didn't seek that inquiry. And then I've always mentioned to you that by extension, he'll do that to you and he'll do that to me as well. Shaitan's kind of, what Shaitan did, if you put it in a nutshell, some people say he used his intellect and all of this. I don't agree with that. I don't think using the intellect was the issue, because the angels use their intellect as well. They asked the question. Your intellect actually should have been stronger, and you should have said, well, let me ask Allah, the creator of Adam, and get my problem solved. He didn't use his intellect. Had he used his intellect, he would have got somewhere, right? Beyond that, he's thinking to himself that I'm fire, I rise and clay falls. That's not intellect. What benefit does something going up and something going down have? Clay is constructive, fire is destructive. If you want to use intellect, that's a better way of looking at it. So I wouldn't even argue he used any intellect as such. And also when people say that, Shaitan, he was extremely knowledgeable, he had more knowledge than this and that, etc., etc. Again, there was ignorance there that caused him to slip. It wasn't the knowledge that caused him to slip. And people say you shouldn't study too much. It was the ignorance that caused him to slip. Had he just asked Allah and cleared that ignorance, so it's ilm nafi, isn't it? It's beneficial knowledge. That's what he didn't go for. And so what Shaitan did in a kind of sentence is he sealed access to Allah. He sealed access to guidance. And that's one of Shaitan's number one tricks. That's what tripped him up. And that's what he'll do with every single one of us. His job is to seal access to guidance. Whether that's your parents, whether that's scholars, whether that's people of learning, whether that's whatever that is. He will seal the doors of guidance and he will make them difficult. He will make them feel uncomfortable. He'll make you feel, it's a Monday, it's first day back to work after a Sunday, it's in the evening, I'm tired, I can't be bothered going, this, that, excuses. I'd rather sit at home, I don't want to go. We all feel that. That's Shaitan's way of convincing us, closing those doors that are going to lead us to something good, inshallah. And so, and I've always said this, if you look through the stories of the prophets, look through every story that you're living in your life, it's the same thing. Shaitan will do that. To Yaqub alayhi salam, he did that with his sons. The boys, they turn up saying about their dad. The dad was a prophet. Inna abana lafi dalalin mubin. Dad's lost the plot. That's what they say. What made them say that? Shaitan. Shaitan put it into their hearts. Dad's not the right person to ask. Dad's biased. Dad's this. All of these things. The one person who could have solved their problem was the father. Shaitan seals access to the father. Shaitan will do that to every single one of us. He will seal access to that beneficial thing that's going to bring us closer to Allah. And so he says that the heart, it's perturbed, it feels pain, from doubts. وَلَمَّا كَانَ ذَلِكَ يُوجِبُ لَهُ حَرَارَةً. It actually creates an agitation within the self. And harara comes from the word, heat. It creates a heat within a person. قِيلَ لِمَنْ حَصَلَ لَهُ الْيَقِينَ. And a person who has conviction, people generally say regarding them in Arabic, ثَلَجَ صَدْرُهُ. His chest has been cooled. And he's found comfort. He's been cooled and he's found the answers. وَحَصَلَ لَهُ بَرْدَ الْيَقِينَ. And he has found the coolness of conviction. وَكَذَلِكَ يُضِيقُ بِالْجَهْلِ. You feel constricted, you feel tight, tight in the chest when a person has that ignorance, والضلال, and that misguidance, and you don't know عن طريق رشد, the right answers, the right path. You feel lost, you feel confused, you don't know what you're doing with life. وَيَنْشَرِحُ بِالْهُدَى وَالْعِلْمِ. But you find that inshirah, that comfort, that peace, that satisfaction, that ease, that happiness, and that contentment bil huda, with guidance and knowledge. قال تعالى, Allah mentions, فَمَن يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَن يَهْدِيَهُ, whomsoever wants that Allah guides them, يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ, Allah will open their chests. Allah will give you that happiness, that contentment, that peace. Right? Lil Islam, Allah opens their heart to Islam. Allah opens their chest to Islam. Islam meaning submission. Allah opens this individual. فَمَن يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَن يَهْدِيَهُ, whoever Allah wants to guide, Allah opens their heart towards submission. Submission to Himself. Right? Submission to Allah. وَمَن يُرِدْ أَن يُضِلَّهُ, and whoever Allah wants to let astray, يَجْعَلْ صَدْرَهُ ضَيِّقًا حَرَجًا كَأَنَّمَا يَصَّعَّدُ فِي السَّمَاءِ. And I specifically translate يُضِلَّهُ, and whoever Allah wants to let astray. Allah doesn't misguide people. Allah doesn't say, let me drag you into hell, I don't like you. Allah lets people go astray. You sin, you disobey, you this, you that, and eventually an individual, they themselves will be led astray. يَجْعَلْ صَدْرَهُ ضَيِّقًا, Allah makes this person's heart kind of ضَيِّقًا, constricted. حَرَجًا, burdensome. كَأَنَّمَا يَصَّعَّدُ فِي السَّمَاءِ, as though this person is climbing up towards the sky. I found this really interesting. When I read this verse for the first time, it didn't really kind of click to me anything particular. But the more I've read it and the more I think about this is really interesting. Allah's really, really kind of powerful with metaphors. He says, the more constricted your heart becomes, the more you feel like you're climbing into the sky. What does that mean? If you've ever climbed a mountain, if you've ever gone into kind of, the higher atmospheres, the oxygen gets thicker. And it's actually much harder to breathe. Right? There's much less oxygen in the air for a person to take in. And so a person feels like their chest is constricting. And you're breathing and you're only getting 60% oxygen. You're only getting 70%, 50%, 40% as you go higher and higher. And that constricted feeling that a person gets, it's when a person isn't submitting to Allah. And it's like the world closes in on you when you don't submit to Allah, when you don't show submission to Allah, when you don't obey Allah. Why? Because you have to submit to something. If you do not have the confidence to submit to Allah, you will have to submit to every other societal pressure. Somebody else will tell you to do this, and you don't have the confidence to say, I'm doing this for Allah, so now you have to do this to please that person, and this person, and that person. And having to please 15 different people, 10 different people, 5 different people, it's so constricting on the self that you lose yourself. You lose your identity. You lose who you are as a person. You live for everybody else. Whereas submission to Allah, actually you find yourself. Right? And that Allah indicates towards us in so many verses, deep, profound verses, that that person who forgot themselves, that person who forgot Allah, so Allah allowed them to forget themselves. Right? فَنَسِيَ اللَّهُ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُم, that verse of the Quran. And they forgot Allah, so Allah let them forget themselves. And Allah allowed them to be forgotten themselves. Yani you lose yourself. And this is what this verse is indicating towards. A very powerful verse. فَمَن يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَن يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ, Allah will open their heart to faith and submission. وَمَن يُرِدْ أَن يُضِلَّهُ, and whoever Allah wants to let astray, يَجْعَلْ صَدْرَهُ ضَيِّقًا حَرَجًا, Allah constricts their heart and their chest. Not just their heart, their chest. كَأَنَّمَا يَصَّعَّدُ فِي السَّمَاءِ, as though this person is climbing up into the skies. And of course, when you're climbing uphill, it has much more of a toll on you in terms of your body, so you're breathing heavier as well, and the air is getting kind of thicker as well. وَسَيَأْتِي ذِكْرُ مَرَضِ ضِيقِ الصَّدْرِ وَسَبَبِهِ وَعِلَاجِهِ inshaAllah. And the author says, I promise you, the discussions on the illness of constricted chest and the causes of the heart becoming constricted and the cures of this will come inshaAllah. I don't want to touch on that right now. All I want to point out, and he concludes this chapter by saying, وَالْمَقْصُودُ, my point of this entire discussion, أن من أمراض القلوب ما يزول بالأدوية الطبيعية. There are those illnesses that will be cured through natural means around in the world around you. You have to make use of them. You have to sometimes go to get some help from somebody. You have to go into sometimes counseling. You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to find this. You have to find that. ومنها ما لا يزول إلا بالأدوية الشرعية الإيمانية. And there are those illnesses that will not be cured except through الأدوية الشرعية الإيمانية, faith-based prescriptions. والقلب له حياة وموت. The heart comes to life and it can also die. ومرض وشفاء. There is cures for the heart and there is illnesses for the heart. وذلك أعظم مما للبدن. And that is more of a concerning factor and a more of a tension that you should have than for your own body. That the illness of the heart and the curing of the heart and the life of the heart and the death of the heart. And so the next discussion he goes on to, أن حياة القلب وإشراقه مادة كل خير فيه وموته وظلمته مادة كل شر فيه. The life and bringing the heart to life and bringing a glow to the heart is the source of all good. And the death of the heart and the darkness of the heart is maddatu kulli sharrin, is the source of all evil and so the source of all harm. And so it's I'm just going to very briefly start this off and then we're going to end on this. أصل كل خير وسعادة للعبد بل لكل حي ناطق كمال حياته ونوره. The asl, the kind of foundation of every good and every form of happiness for the person in this world, rather for every hayyin natiqin, for every rational existing being, kamalu hayati wa nurihi, is the perfection of his life. فالحياة والنور مادة الخير كله. And the life and the light are the very substance from which all goodness comes. All he's pointing out, a very simple thing that he's saying is, the metric that every person in this world, Muslim, non-Muslim, whatever, the metric everybody's looking for is one word: happiness. If you ask anybody, why are you doing this? What is it you're looking for? What's it? Do you want money or happiness? Happiness. Do you want this or that? Happiness. Or do you want this or that? Happiness. The thing that everyone's looking for is happiness. They want to be happy. And the author is pointing out the hayatul qalb, the life of the heart, and to bring light into this heart is the cure for all of that. Allah mentions, أَوَمَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا. أَوَمَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا is the one who is dead. فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ, and then we gave them life. وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا, and then we provided them a light. يَمْشِي بِهِ, which this person walks with. يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ, he walks amongst the people with this light. كَمَنْ مَثَلُهُ فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ, is that person similar and is that person like the one who is في الظُّلُمَاتِ, in layers of darkness, لَيْسَ بِخَارِجٍ مِنْهَا, and is unable to pull themselves out and emerge from that darkness. Allah says a very simple thing. Can the two be the same? Can that person who walks with light, that person who walks with conviction, that person who walks with an understanding of the world around them, can that person be like the one who walks in darknesses? لَيْسَ بِخَارِجٍ مِنْهَا, who is shackled by these darknesses. It's a metaphor. Whenever you read a metaphor, you don't move on. With a metaphor, you stop and you ask yourself, what's the example that Allah is talking about here? So you pick aspects of your life. And you pick aspects of your life and you put them into the sections. You say, فِي ظُلُمَاتٍ, in these darknesses. What are these darknesses? Example, society tells me to dress a certain way. Society tells me to do a certain thing. In these darknesses, لَيْسَ بِخَارِجٍ مِنْهَا, but I can't pull myself out of that. I can't pull myself out of these darknesses. I'm entrapped in these darknesses. Because the key thing about faith that you will keep seeing again and again, it's not what happens in your head, it's not what happens in your brain, it's what happens in your actions and your statements. Listen to this carefully. This verse used a very specific phrase. يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ. This person takes this light, and they don't just take this light and put it in their pocket or in their heart or in their wallet or in their purse or this. يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ, they walk with this light amongst the people. When Allah talks about guidance and we make the dua for guidance, ask yourself, I've already said this. If I was to write Surah Al-Fatiha, I would not write guidance to the straight path. I would write guidance to Jannah. I would write guidance to you, O Allah. But Allah knows better what I need than I do myself. Why did Allah write and teach us guidance to the straight path? Because the second you start thinking path, instantly you start thinking walking. When you start thinking walking, Allah is saying the destination is not your focus. You just need to get walking and do something. The action is important. That's what's the fundamental thing for us. In this verse as well, وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا يَمْشِي بِهِ. You start walking with that light. The bits of knowledge Allah has given us, if we practice on that, Allah will open up so many doors. The hard bit is not the studying. The hard bit is not the reading, and the hard bit is the practicing. The hard bit is the walking the walk. The hard bit is the sirat al-mustaqim, the path that you're considering, looking for a path. And the reason the path is so significant is when you're walking on a path, you have to take a guide with you. You have to find somebody who's going to show you the right path. You have to take provision with you. You have to have the right things with you to get to the end, to the destination. Allah is saying you should be thinking path. You should be thinking the journey, because it's a long journey. The journey of this world is a long journey. It's short in many respects, but it's also a toilsome, difficult journey in many respects as well. And so, again, these verses are so significant. Allah leaks in this beautiful way, and He leaves traces in such a beautiful way that kind of direct us and point us and push us to think about things. That's what these metaphors are there for. There's no light that anybody's walking with. Nobody's walking. Allah's not given anybody a special lantern that they walk with. So it's not a literal thing, it's a metaphor. وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ. And He walks with this light amongst the people. She'll walk with this light amongst people confidently. It's not like I'm Muslim in private, but finnasi, no, I'm a believer. I'm somebody who submits to Allah. Why do you do this? Because it's what my Allah wants. Fundamentally, that's the reason. Why don't you do this? It's because fundamentally that's what Allah wants. Harms, benefits, this, that, all of that, secondary. It's because that's what Allah wants. كَمَنْ مَثَلُهُ فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ. Can that person who walks with that conviction and that strength of faith, can they ever be like that person who's struggling in darknesses, who's enveloped in darknesses, and they can't even emerge from that darkness? They're just swallowed up in those darknesses. You see that now you start thinking about that metaphor. Now that metaphor starts making sense. Now that metaphor starts coming together and a person starts thinking, can there really be a difference in the two? From the external, somebody looks at this person of faith and thinks it's such a struggle, this, that, etc. But this person is walking with a nuran from Allah, a light from Allah. And Allah says, أَوَمَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا. We were all dead. فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ. But we brought them to life. We gave them life. Allah is saying the real life and existence and kind of, it's only worth living if you live for Allah. And so the author then says, فَجَمَعَ بَيْنَ الْأَصْلَيْنِ, and we finish on this. Two kind of key principles Allah's brought together, two foundations here, al-hayatu wa-nur, life and light. Allah gave life to this person, and then Allah gave light to this person. Allah gave existence, Allah gave a spark to this person, and Allah gave light to this person. Think about, for example, your cooker at home. And you have to give it a spark. That's life. And then from there comes the light. That it enlightens everything around it. فبالحياة تكون قوته وسمعه وبصره وحياؤه وعفته وشجاعته وصبره وسائر أخلاقه الفاضلة. That with this life that Allah will give an individual, تكون قوته, that's where your strength will come, your ability to hear the verses and to take impact, the ability to see the blessings of Allah and to let them have an effect. This is where your hayat will come, your modesty, your iffa, your chastity, your shuja'a, your bravery, your sabr, your patience, all of the virtues that you're looking for, all of the things that you want to beautify your heart with, it will come from this hayat that Allah gives, this life that Allah gives. Right? This Allah giving life to this individual. وَمَحَبَّتَهُ لِلْحُسْنِ وَبُغْضُهُ لِلْقَبِيحِ. You want to love the beautiful things and the good things, and you want to hate the things that Allah has created that are sinful and despiseful. Our hearts are the opposite. We love that which Allah dislikes. We love the sins. We love the disobedience. They look beautified. And that which Allah wants is ugly. And that which Allah wants looks detestable. Do you want the opposite? You need to seek this light. You need to seek this life and light. فَكُلَّمَا قَوِيَتْ حَيَاتُهُ. Every time your life is strengthened, قَوِيَتْ فِيهِ هَذِهِ الصِّفَاتِ. These qualities are strengthened. He's going to talk to us how a person can do this. But again, notice he's not talking about spiritual illnesses and stuff yet. He's saying you need to create those kind of power plants And you need to create those sources of energy that you are going to have within you that are going to continue nourishing this goodness. And he's showing us through the verses of the Quran. وَإِذَا ضَعُفَتْ حَيَاتُهُ ضَعُفَتْ فِي هَذِهِ الصِّفَاتِ. And as the life of faith, it's reduced and it diminishes, so does the qualities that you want within you. وحياؤه من القبائح هو بحسب حياتي في نفسه. Your modesty when it comes to that which is immoral is dependent on the life of your heart. فالقلب الصحيح الحي إذا عرضت عليه القبائح. And that pure heart, and that heart that is righteous, and that heart which is living and breathing and pumping, if you present filth to it, نفر منها بطبعه وأبغضها, it will flee from it. It will dislike it within its nature. ولم يلتفت إليها, it won't even give a second glance to it. بخلاف القلب الميت, as opposed to the dead heart, the deceased heart. فإنه لا يفرق بين الحسن والقبيح. It will not even consider between good and bad. كما قال عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله تعالى عنه, as Abdullah ibn Mas'ud mentions, and we finish on this: هلك من لم يكن له قلب يعرف به المعروف والمنكر. هلك, destroyed is that individual, لم يكن له قلب, who does no longer have a heart, يعرف به المعروف, which recognizes the good, والمنكر, and distinguishes from the evil. And so that's what the author, he finishes on. He says, وَكَذَلِكَ الْقَلْبُ الْمَرِيضُ بِالشَّهْوَةِ. That is the same case for that heart which is ill because of its desires. فَإِنَّهُ لِضُعْفِهِ يَمِيلُ إِلَى مَا يَعْرِضُ لَهُ مِنْ ذَلِكَ بِحَسَبِ قُوَّةِ الْمَرَضِ وَضُعْفِهِ. He'll continue with this idea that your inclinations are because of these things, and he's going to mention some more verses. وكذلك أوحينا إليك روحا من أمرنا ما كنت تدري ما الكتاب ولا الإيمان ولكن جعلناه نورا نهدي به من نشاء من عبادنا أو من كان ميتا فأحييناه وجعلنا له نورا يمشي به في الناس. Other verses he's going to look at, he's going to present loads of verses. أنزل من السماء ماء فسالت أودية بقدرها فاحتمل السيل زبدا رابيا ومما يوقدون عليه في النار ابتغاء حلية. Lots and lots of metaphors. Lots and lots of metaphors. And so for us, it's to explore what is the metaphor in the Quran for. And so obviously, on a side point, and we finish here, one of the things that you'll keep seeing in the studies of tafsir is often, I see this often as well, even in kind of lectures and things like this, when a verse which is a metaphor is mentioned, people translate and move on. Metaphors exist for reflection. And so a person has to really stop and reflect on what the metaphors are in the Quran. Right? There's books that are entire books that are written on the metaphors in the Quran. The kind of the examples that Allah draws, the metaphors that Allah presents. So there's entire books on that in the Arabic language, of course. I don't think I've come across anything in English yet. But beyond that, the conversations of today were surrounded on two things. Number one is that there are two types of illnesses. There are the spiritual illnesses and there are the tabi'i illnesses, the kind of natural illnesses. The natural illnesses you have to work on as well, and these will have an effect and a detriment on your physical life, on your health, your physical well-being, your body, all of these things. And then you have the spiritual illnesses. The spiritual illnesses, they are much more important for a person to focus on. Ibn al-Qayyim is going to spend his time focusing on those spiritual illnesses, and he points out that those spiritual illnesses, you might think you're curing them, but you're only making them worse if you go about them the wrong way. If you go about the spiritual illnesses the wrong way, and you keep trying to kind of, you've got jealousy for somebody, so you think, what, if I damage this blessing of theirs, I won't be jealous of them anymore, I'll be happy, I'll be content. So you damage that thing. It doesn't cure the illness. You've made it worse, and you will only make it worse. The illness can only be cured in the way that Allah wants it to be cured, and in taking the right medicine. Right? You'll only aggravate the issue. It might look for a short period of time that you've made yourself better and you feel better or you feel good about yourself, but it'll only make things worse in the long term. The solution, and then also the medicines. Sometimes we're looking at the wrong medicines. We think we're taking medicine. The world around us thinks we're taking medicine, and the world will even see you getting better. You'll start attending circles of knowledge. You'll start covering up, you'll start dressing a certain way, you'll start talking a certain way. People think you're getting better, but the heart remains just in the same place that it was, because your focus is the exterior, not the interior. And so sometimes a person can take medicine, the placebo effect makes you feel better. You think you're getting better, you think something's happening, but deep down you know that you're an imposter. Deep down you know that it's not where it should be. And so Allah give us tawfiq, inshallah. And so the author is going to talk about what really should be the focus. And the focus he's going to use, again, Ibn al-Qayyim, this is what he does. The verses of the Quran, that's what he does. He's a student of Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullah alayhi, and his training was done in that type of way. What do we learn from the verse of the Quran? What do we learn from the hadith? The different types of hearts. Where is he getting that from? He's getting the idea from, يشرح صدره للإسلام. And so when he talks about these verses as well, you'll probably notice some of the best bits are the tafsir parts, right? And so, Ibn Qayyim is kind of, a master when it comes to tafsir as well. And so inshallah, we'll wrap it up there, inshallah, and we'll continue next week, inshallah. A lot of people have been asking about tafsir as well, or if we're starting something in tafsir soon. I think this Ramadan, it will be a tafsir series that I wanted to do for a while, inshallah.